What's going on, everyone? We have to go over Humanity. As you can see, this coin had a huge dump. It went down 72% in 7 days, 60% in the last hour. So this thing has suffered a huge crash, a huge attack. And I'm going to talk about that today. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice, but let's go straight over this because it's actually crazy. Right now, the market cap's at 385 million. But if you look at what happened with Humanity, you can see that it peaked at a very, 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 very high level right here. And it's just kind of coincidental how it peaked right before it dumped, right? But anyways, we're going to talk about that later on in the video. Right now it's at 70, or it went all the way up to 78 cents and then even hit 79 cents after that for the second time. And then when you look at the market cap, it was up there in market cap as well. It was at 1.4 billion market cap. And now it's all the way down to 385 million inside of market cap. So what happened? Why did this thing completely dump? We'll talk about that. And then we'll also talk about the technicals and what's about to happen now. And you really want to hear about that. But let's go over what is going on, what happened, why is this crazy? So I had to ask my best friend, ChatGPT, like, what's going on? And I was like, look, what happened to Humanity Crypto? Explain, no fluff. ChatGPT tells me Humanity Protocol got wrecked because of a major security breach / hack. So not because of normal market selling. Here is the quick breakdown. They said around the 8th or 9th, attackers reportedly got access to private keys tied to Humanity Protocol wallet bridges. And this was allegedly caused by a compromised developer / employee machine malware on a laptop, not a smart contract exploit. So the hacker drained 17 plus wallets. And I want you to remember this for later on. Malware on a laptop, and it was compromised on the developer's laptop, right? And you know what? I'm just going to show you right now what I'm talking about on this. So someone says the devs hacked themselves. So they're saying the devs are really behind this and they hacked themselves. So we're going to talk about that later on. But yeah, that's a big one. And then over here it says the hacker drained 17 plus wallets. It was that's a pretty big amount of money right there, 30 million plus in value. Reports say the attacker started dumping stolen H tokens and even minted additional H on BNB chain, creating huge sell pressure. Why the price nuked is because stolen coins dumped into the market, trust collapsed, people panicked and sold, and then the bridge liquidity / concerns. Users were warned to avoid parts of the ecosystem until resolved, and then bad timing, right as it's like, topping out in price, and also a token unlock on June 25th. Another reason for it to just dump. So the damage, H went down 80 to 90%, just like we looked at right there. It had a dead cat bounce, all that good stuff, right? So that's pretty much everything that happened, through and throughout, right? And now they're trying to do some cleanup, right? They're trying to be like, look, everybody, we're getting things right. We're getting it straight. It's all good. Read our newsletter. We're gonna get it right, right? But remember what I said. Someone mentioned that the devs hacked themselves. Right, they do seem kind of calm inside of all this, right? They do seem pretty calm within all of this. But yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. I've made 2 videos on Humanity in the past, right? Because someone recommended me to go over this project. But it's kind of crazy how things are playing out with this, right? And then over here it says, let me explain why H is pumping. So this guy says, basically, if you look at most of these tokens, they drop 80 to 90% within 10 to 30 minutes. And then during that period, almost nobody can catch the short, which is true. It just dumps and then you just can't catch it. Like literally one candlestick all the way down, boom, and you can't catch it. But once most people start opening their short positions, once they see that, the token suddenly starts rising because the market makers want to liquidate those shorts. That's actually correct. And that's a good point that this person right here made. So that is definitely correct right there. So be careful. If you see this thing pumping up again, be careful. It's going to dump soon. I'm going to talk about why in a second here, but let's go over some other things. So this person says many people see H drop from 61 cents to 49 cents and think game over. But those who make the biggest profits often don't sell out of fear during these pullback phases. Shares drop. So this person is pretty much saying, look, long term is going to be good. This person's a super bull. I like to call them perma bulls. And they're like, oh, it's going to come back. But if the devs dumped on people, then is it really going to come back? Now, supposedly, they got attacked, but there was malware on the computer, right? So did they put the malware there themselves, or was the malware already there, right? So there's a lot of fishy stuff inside of that. So all the long term stuff, I wouldn't be screaming that right now. So anyone in the comments, if you're thinking, humanity for the long term, and that just sounds weird saying that. Say, let's say H coin for the long term. That's just kind of like, I don't think it's going to be an actual thing. So we'll see. Now, it does say humanity crime pump after devs hacked themselves. So do you really believe that the devs actually hacked themselves, or do you think that they actually were affected by the malware on their computer that they somehow got downloaded from online, right? Maybe they downloaded it online, but supposedly it was an internal hack. So how is this happening, right? So I agree. I think the protocol is practically dead. I think that this project is done for. It's going to be another Terra Luna Classic, but instead of coming back, I don't think it's going to come back. It says the team is pulling a 500% crime pump to liquidate shorts. After doing something like this, crypto teams complain about their users, saying we don't believe in them. These people have no shame. And I want you guys to understand something. This thing was at $1.4 billion. It was at $1.4 billion. Now, obviously, the team can't extract $1.4 billion just like that because of the way crypto works. It just won't work like that. But they extracted a lot. It went from 1.4 billion to 200 million or 150 million. Now, does that mean that they ran up over $1 billion off of dumping on people? No. Maybe they ran up 30, like ChatGPT was saying, but I think they may have ran up in the few hundred millions, like a couple hundred million. I think they might have ran up like 2 to 300 million. And that's a lot of money. So when you have these developers that have a project that's not really doing, or that it wasn't really doing so well for a long time, and then all of a sudden it's doing well, everybody knows that once it peaks, it's going to dump, right? Once it peaks, it's still going to dump because that's the flow of things. This is how price action works. This is how price flow works. This is how market flow works. Like, this is how the money flows. When it gets all the way up to such a high level, it's at 1.4 billion. They know it's going to dump. Now, the real question is, are they going to let it slowly and artificially pull back? Or are they going to dump it themselves and take all the money for themselves and push it down to zero? And what you got to think is, this is 300, probably 500 million. I don't know. They ran up a lot of money, $500 million. Let's say they ran up $500 million. That's life-changing money. And if you think that these devs won't take that opportunity to do that, then you are greatly mistaken. So I would be extremely careful with all these newer projects coming out, because it's so easy for people to push a project like this and have it just say a bunch of random stuff like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, it's going to be like this and that. And then something like this happens. Where do you think the money's going? Like, these people are making a lot of money. That's why when I start seeing projects get overpriced like that, and they're like newer projects, I'm like, oh, it's going to dump. And people are saying, why are you always being a bear? You're always saying it's going to dump. Because this is how the market flows. Like, when you have projects up so high, they are going to dump. I could literally look at a whole handful of projects right now that are doing super well that I can tell you that are going to dump. Now, what I will say is Pudgy Penguins, always going to be good. Pudgy Penguins always going to be good. But you see what happened when Pudgy Penguins got all the way up to like billions of market cap. It eventually dumped because it's not going to stay up there forever. This is how the market is flowing, right? The greater market where the whole crypto market's following Bitcoin, and individual markets. Because Pudgy Penguins did its thing, but it peaked. It peaked out at 2.6 billion and then it dumped. But it's going to come back, but it dumps not, it dumps not artificially, it dumps naturally, right? This is a natural dump. It's natural for stuff to dump immediately afterwards, but not just like after one day, like boom, all the way down to zero. No, Pudgy Penguins did this over months and months and months. It sold off. So almost like a whole year. Like, it took it almost a whole year to completely sell off. But this Humanity coin, it sold off in like a day. So that's the difference. It doesn't matter if it peaks, but if it just sells off all the way like that, that's malicious intent. So they're making all that money on the back end. For this. But anyways, let's talk about the technicals. We got multiple things here, multiple red flags. First red flag we had that told the Humanity team, hey, look, or whoever did the dump, it was like, hey, look, this is your last chance. You either do this malicious intent, and that's why I was talking about all that just now. We either do this malicious intent now, or forever hold our peace, and we won't be able to dump on everybody. They had to do it now. because if they didn't, they wouldn't have been able to dump on everybody because they had a bearish double top. Double tops are bearish patterns. And as you can see here, this is a bearish pattern in the candlestick patterns. So right here at the top left, the bearish double top. So it had a bearish double top. So they're like, look, we got to do it now because we've already topped out once and now we're topping out again. They were like, maybe we let it continue to go up, but it might not continue to go up. So how about we just dump it right here? I mean, very perfect timing, right? Very good timing. And then boom, everything just happens. Very perfect timing. Right as a double top is forming. Now look, I'm no chart expert, and if I can just look at the charts and look at this type of stuff and tell like this is what's happening, don't you think that developers of a project can do that too? Don't you think that people who created a whole cryptocurrency can do that too, right? And do all this market reading and reading all these charts, right? I'm not doing anything special, right? So I think that they knew exactly what was happening, and then they were like, all right, let's dump it right here at the top. Let's dump it right here at the top. Let's create this malware, and let's get a good cop out so they don't think that we dumped on everybody. And then let's have this thing dump, and then we're sitting good, guys. We're at 500 million, breaking it down, 5 people, 100 million each. Like, think about it. Like, this is the type of stuff that's happening in crypto. And then they go out to Singapore, and now they're living out in Singapore, and they're out inside their little high rise. Maybe they're out in Hong Kong, or they go to one of these tax havens, right? So they just go to these different places and they're chilling. They're in Dubai. They're chilling, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're like, all right, once this starts to run out, let's go ahead and create another coin. Or they invest it and they never have to create another coin, right? They never have to create another coin, but they have the resources so they can continue to create these coins, and they can fund other developers to create coins and then do the same thing with other developers. So it doesn't even look like they're doing it, but they're doing the funding in the background. So I think a lot of these developers are working together. And this is like I feel like the whole crypto market is like a multi-million-dollar scheme. And not the whole crypto market. I mean like these newer coins that are just coming out, and then they're just having these malicious things. As we've seen Rave, DAO, we've seen CoAI, we've seen so many, MYX Finance, we've seen just Siren, we've seen all these different coins back to back just doing the same thing. Like, I feel like they're really working together. I don't know. Let me get the tinfoil hat off and let's get back to the market. So right here, this is a bear flag. We have a bear flag right here, and this is a bearish pattern. So we're about to have another dump. This was a dead cat bounce, or a dead cat bounce, whatever you want to call it. And it was also, I guess, catching a falling knife. But this is a bear flag. So as this bear flag goes through and as it starts to dump, you're going to see Humanity Coin going all the way down. And it's going to go down to 2 cents probably. And 2 cents is where I have their all-time low at. Well, yeah, I think that's like their lowest point at 2 cents. I think it's going to go back down to 2 cents. And just doing the math, if we were to take, and I'm just going to look at it by the market cap. So we're going to take the circulating supply and we're going to multiply it by $2 or 2 cents, right? 0.025. Multiply it by 0.025, and that gives us $45 million market cap. So I would say it's going to be down there pretty soon, and it's probably going to go even lower than that too. So I would be very careful with this. It's going to go below 45 million market cap probably. But anyways, we do have this bear flag. So as it starts to push down, you want to be super careful. And then on top of that, we have this right here, the percent R trend exhaustion. I talk about this in all of my videos. The white line is the short-term trend. The blue line is the long-term trend. When you see the short-term trend far exceed the long-term trend, you start to see the price pulling back and going down because the long-term trend is not following it. So pretty much what's going to happen is the price is going to dump, and this happens in everywhere that we see, right? We can go to Bitcoin and we can look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is doing the same thing right here. And Bitcoin did the same thing here. It did the same thing here. It did the same thing here. And it's forming the same exact thing, which is exactly why Bitcoin is going to dump out of its bear flag as well. And what happened all those other times that I just mentioned was the pulling back of the price. Here it goes up, but the long-term trend didn't follow, so it dumps. Here, short-term trend goes up, long-term trend doesn't follow, it goes down because of that. Here, same exact thing. And we did the same thing here, and we're forming the same thing here on Bitcoin right now as it goes up to the top of its bear flag, and then it'll end up dumping from there. But Humanity, I'm only reason why I'm saying that is just to show what the percent R trend exhaustion does in real time. I day trade options in the stock market. So if you look at the 1 minute chart on SPY, and I'm always doing SPY trading, you can actually see this happen several times right here. boom, the short-term trend goes up, long-term trend doesn't follow, so it just dumps. Same thing here, same thing here, and then it starts to go up a little bit, so then that's when it starts to take off. And if you look at what was happening at that time period, and we zoom in on this, and let's take this off and zoom in, we see bull traps and bear flags being created. Bull traps and bear flags. Bear flag right there, boom. We come down here, another bull trap, which is also a bear flag here, bear flag, and then we continue downwards, and then it creates a bear flag. So that's how bear flags are created on the %R trend exhaustion, and that's what I use all the time. And it's so good for puts, and that's why I love doing puts in the SPY right now, because you know that thing is just going up and down. But yeah, it's crazy right now. But that's why I'm talking about the %R trend exhaustion, because when you go back and spin it back to humanity and you look at this thing, you're like, well, what's happening right now? Well, we're creating the same exact pattern. We're creating the same exact bear flag that is going to be the demise of, it sounds weird saying the demise of humanity. But look, it's going to be a bear flag and it's going to pull back down here. And it's the same exact thing. The %R trend exhaustion, we're seeing the short-term trend breaking past the long-term trend, and it's actually about to take a huge dump now. So I'm probably going to cut the video here so I can get it out as soon as possible. So whoever sees it, who's in it, knows this might be your last chance. And maybe it does continue to go up, right? And maybe I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. But that's just, I guess, a chance you got to take, right? So this is all I got for you guys today. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. This is all my opinions on what I think is about to happen. But yeah, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, I'll be back with another video.